In the days of the live service game, endings, like final endings where nothing else is gonna happen, are kind of becoming a little more rare. And some games out there really make you work for it. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 of the hardest video game endings you can unlock. Starting off at number 10, it's Batman Arkham Knight, the Nightfall Protocol, an infamous one. The real ending of Batman Arkham Knight requires you to complete all of the side missions that were in the main game, which doesn't sound bad at first, but there's one big green problem here. To beat the Riddler, you gotta find every single one of his trophies in the game, and there's 243 of them. They're all over the place, there's a ton of them, and getting them is gonna take hours of careful backtracking through every corner of the city. This is a huge pain, to put it mildly. It wouldn't be so bad if this only unlocked a little bonus after the ending credits or something, but it's the ending. It's the one where Batman considers the city safe. Games aren't over till you hit the ending credits, and the credits only roll after the Nightfall Protocol. So there it is. This is the ending. To unlock it, you have to spend an ungodly amount of time running around the city collecting trophies. Like, at least you get a really good boss fight out of it, which is kind of bizarre by itself, because it's the only real boss fight in the game. At least the only one that doesn't involve the Batmobile. I don't think people would complain about this nearly as much as they just cut down the Riddler trophy requirements by like a third. Like, do you need to find all of them? It is an exhausting process that does give collectathon junkies a nice reward for their OCD habits, but for the rest of us, it's just a huge pain. And number 9 is Sifu's secret ending. This is already one of the hardest games of the past couple years, but unlocking the secret ending takes things to a whole nother level. It all revolves around this mechanic that you may not even realize is possible, where you can spare the bosses. Fight one of the main bosses normally, and they always end the same way, with your character finishing them off in the end. To spare them, you have to do something even more difficult. You have to lower their structure enough to do a final blow, but don't do anything, let them restore, beat them again, and keep doing that a couple of times until the spare option appears. What makes this so difficult is that the bosses are already hard, and lowering their structure that much without just outright killing them by mistake requires you to be extremely good at this game. Like, mastering the mechanics is essential. It's the only way to get even within spitting distance of this ending, because seriously, some of the bosses are so relentless that beating them normally can feel like an almost insurmountable challenge. And then you complicate it. And number 8 is Crypt of the Necrodancer, just the ending. Unlike most of the other entries on this list, where the difficult ending is like a secret in some way, or like a bonus, this one's just the ending, period. Crypt of the Necrodancer does actually have a story. It's not a major part of the game or anything, but if you want to finish it, then there's certain characters you gotta complete a run with. With most characters, the game's a fun challenge, a clever combination of roguelike and rhythm. There's nothing uniquely brutal about it until you unlock the character Arya. If you want to see the ending of the game, you gotta finish a run as Arya, a character who dies in a single hit. Well, at least at first. Eventually the devs threw players a bone and gave her a potion so she can take 2 hits, which is better, but it's only a small solace. That's it. That's what makes this game so incredibly hard to finish. Compared to the other 2 story characters in the regular game, Arya's got a difficulty spike that's basically just a 90-degree angle, a massive wall for many players to get through, and it requires a ton of practice and failed attempts to do it. And just so you know, it's not just enemies hitting her that does damage. If you miss a beat, 1 beat while using her, she takes damage. So basically, you have to be perfect to complete a run with this character. It's absolutely nuts, especially as a requirement just to see the standard ending. And number 7 is Final Fantasy X2's perfect ending. This is a weird one as it is. X2 is a strange game, one with all of its own little eccentricities, but sometimes secret endings are just, the requirements are so absurd. The only justification is that the developers wanted people to buy the guide. That's the only way I think you can justify the nonsense Final Fantasy X2 puts you through to get the perfect ending. Now, the basic requirements, pretty straightforward. 100% completion, there you go. The problem's in the details, meaning what the game actually counts as completion. In most games, that boils down to getting all the collectibles, completing the side quests, fighting every kind of enemy, basic stuff that makes some kind of sense to count towards completion. Not Final Fantasy X2. When this game says 100% completion, it friggin' means it. Every stupid little thing counts in this game. You have to talk to every NPC, hear all their dialogue. You have to do every random little pointless event and every bit of content in the game, period. Even cutscenes count towards completion. If you skip them, sorry, no perfect ending for you. This gets especially frustrating when you have to hear certain dialogue hidden behind otherwise completely meaningless choices. You know how JRPGs give you pointless yes-no responses that change anything? Well, in this game, if you give the wrong response to some random guy, you're locked out of completion. And to make it as miserable as possible, the game doesn't track any of it. So good luck finding the one random guy you forgot to talk to. And number 6 is Drakengard, Ending E, another PS2 RPG, another ridiculous set of ending requirements. Before making Nier, which the ending requirements in that game somehow look sane in comparison to this, Yoko Taro made Drakengard, a very weird combination of Ace Combat and Berserk. Not exactly a great game, but very interesting. Like Nier, the game starts with an A ending, that's the most straightforward, and gets stranger from there. Final ending, Ending E, is completely nuts, and unlocking it is one of the most frustrating ordeals possible. It's another one of those requirements that sounds simple, but it's so much worse than it sounds. To unlock Ending E, you gotta collect every special weapon in the game. If this were a normal game, that would maybe not be a big deal, but you can't just hunt around and find them. This is Drakengard, a game that makes no sense. Some of the requirements to unlock weapons are straight up insane. Like there's one weapon that only appears after killing 4 random enemies on a map, then the weapon appears at a random unmarked chest in a completely different area. Some weapons only appear after getting another weapon, one only appears after waiting around for 25 minutes. Yes, that's a real requirement to get a weapon in this game. And there's a particularly infuriating one where you gotta look at a bunch of portraits in a certain order. And no, there's no indication you're supposed to do this. The only way you can figure it out is by getting a guide. Ending E has to be seen to be believed, but unlocking it is hardly worth the effort, especially in a world where YouTube exists. And number 5 is Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, the Ascension ending. In a previous video, I mentioned the absurd secret ending requirements to Pathfinder Kingmaker. And guess what? The sequel, Wrath of the Righteous, is just as bad, possibly worse, honestly. The Pathfinder games are the hardest of hardcore CRPGs. These games are filled with character options and an almost overwhelming amount of choices to make, but if you do a series of very specific actions throughout this 100-hour RPG behemoth, you can unlock the hidden Ascension ending. To put it in perspective, you can lock yourself out of this ending by doing the wrong thing in the prologue. Seriously, to even start this ending, you have to pick up a random little knife in a pile of debris during the prologue, and if you don't do that, it doesn't happen. Oh, and it gets harder from there. You have to make counterintuitive choices multiple times throughout the playthrough, spend time on research projects that would normally seem pointless, and worst of all, you have to enter the game's final dungeon on a specific week. Like if you're a week early or a week late, it doesn't work. So, you have to very carefully plan out the days, or that 50 plus hours playing the game trying to get this ending was just a waste of time. The game uses a made-up calendar, so it's like if you actually had to keep track of the date in Skyrim, and if you rested too much, you'd get locked out of an ending. Only worse, because this game is normally a lot tougher than Skyrim, at least on the standard difficulty.
You should have run!
They will break against our resolve. Ha!
And number 4 is Suikoden 2, 108 Stars of Destiny, one of the all-time great PS1 RPGs, but even fans of the series admit the secret ending requirements are kind of bullshit. For one thing, to even get on the path to the best ending, you gotta recruit all 108 characters, an already extremely difficult feat that basically requires a guide to do because many of these characters are hidden, and I don't mean like locked behind a door, I mean in some out-of-the-way place that would normally just not be somewhere you'd ever ever go. A lot of the recruits are time gated too, so they can only be found in specific places at specific points in the story. And in this game, there are so many branching paths, and if you go down the wrong one, you're screwed, and that character is unobtainable. If you manage to get everyone, the true ending still can be locked out behind a seemingly innocuous moment, a part where you have to respond to somebody quickly. Too slow, and the true ending is locked out. Why would they do that? I mean, at this point, everybody playing the game is going to be using a guide at this point anyway, but still, there's nothing else like this in the game, or in most RPGs in general, so unless you know exactly what to do beforehand, you're going to miss the opportunity, period. And number 3 is Fear and Hunger's Ending A. To get Ending A, you gotta escort the girl, a very weak character, perhaps stereotypically so, all the way to the end of the game, including through several difficult boss fights and a punishment gauntlet full of traps and enemies. Should they succeed in this, the girl will transform into the God of Fear and Hunger, one of the hardest bosses in the game. Some thanks, right? Anyways, winning the fight results in a special ending where the player's party dies anyway, having created and released a malevolent force, rivaling the old gods into the rest of the world. Just finishing this bizarre RPG throwback is nearly impossible, but getting the most difficult ending, even worse. At its core, Fear and Hunger is a brutal dungeon crawler where any wrong move can lead to death. It's hard enough on its own, but you get this ending by escorting an otherwise completely worthless character to the end of the game. Like, I'm not sure if I was sufficiently descriptive earlier in the point. She can barely fight or do much of anything. She is a liability, and you have to somehow get her through the entire dungeon without dying. In a game where getting through a single room is an achievement, getting to the end with this load on your back requires a deep understanding of the mechanics. Basically, it's a harder version of an already very hard game. Also, it's just kind of a dick move. And number 2 is Shadow the Hedgehog, The Last Way. Okay, here's the thing. Unlocking the final mission in Shadow the Hedgehog isn't nearly as difficult as most of the things on this list so far, but it's very tedious. To unlock the true ending, you have to see all 10 normal endings, which is done by going down all of the branching paths. Fine so far. It's an incentive to do everything in the game, but the problem is how the whole thing is structured. Basically, the game always starts on the first level, and from there, depending on whatever you choose to do, the good, the evil, or the neutral, you get a different level. What makes this so bad and frustrating is that, for one thing, you gotta go through the first level 10 times, and it's the only level that's 100% required to see all the endings, and you're gonna be so sick of it by the end. Like, the difficulty here isn't necessarily the level, it's just experiencing the level. Another problem is the missions. Sometimes they're terrible. Like the ones that force you to kill a certain number of enemies and collect so many rings. They can become impossible to do. Like, you can't complete them depending on the circumstances. That's not a helpful aspect of this. The real hardest part about this is playing Shadow the Hedgehog without falling asleep or giving up, because it's a crappy game. It's an annoying unlock requirement in a pretty lousy game, and while it's not as hard necessarily to complete, there is something called life, and as an achievement in that, it is actually very hard to complete. It's not so much based on the challenge of the game itself, but the challenge of staying awake while playing the game, or staying with the game.
Even you can do it!
Don't you dare give up!
Please, hurry! You're strong enough. I know you are.
And finally, at number 1, Agarest, Generations of War. You probably never heard of this random Idea Factory RPG, but its secret ending requirements are so ridiculous, it does get itself onto this list. Basically, every annoying ending requirement from every other game that we have included on this list, just take all that, mash it together, and, you get this misery stew. Do you have to make a bunch of seemingly pointless decisions? Oh yeah. If you pick the wrong one, you're locked out? Of course. Is it timed? Yup. You have to get to the last chapter with such a stupidly low turn count. Battle's gotta be finished super quickly every time. Is it ridiculously hard? Naturally. Even if you do manage to unlock the true ending path, you still have to deal with a totally unfair difficulty spike. In a game where you normally finish the story around level 80 to 100, you're suddenly thrown into a battle with guys who are level 500 to 800, so the only way to deal with them is to grind like a madman. A difficulty spike is expected for the post-game or end game of an RPG, especially a JRPG, but this is not fair. Idea Factory Compile Hearts games are kind of notorious for infuriating secret ending requirements, but this is by far the worst of all of them, and that's saying something. Quick bonus for you, Jet Force Gemini, those stupid tribals. This may not warrant a place on the list, but I'll be damned if this game isn't daring you to try and finish it. The requirements to get the standard ending are not fair. To unlock the final boss and beat the game, you gotta rescue all these little freaks. Like, if Banjo-Kazooie made you find all the jiggies to get to the final boss, it's like that, and they run away from you. Enemies can kill them, and they always respawn whenever you go back into a level, and the game doesn't keep track of the ones you found. I hate these fuzzy turds with a burning passion, and their presence makes the game almost impossible to finish unless you want to subject yourself to the most miserable tedium trying to hunt all of them down. This one requirement took what was otherwise a fun game and made it totally miserable. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.